What's up, guys? Welcome to Mike It Yourself. And for today's video, what we're going to be swapping out is the crankshaft position sensor on the '07 Road King. Damn it! All right, guys. So, just to kind of talk through this a little bit before we actually jump into the replacement of that sensor, I just want to share with you kind of the symptoms that I'm experiencing, kind of a little bit of the story and what indications I had to make me believe that this is the problem. Now, let me start off by saying that I don't have any codes. Um, this is all based on how the motor is acting. Um, and with what limited knowledge I do have, I'm kind of taking a best guess here. So my symptoms are sometimes the bike doesn't want to start right away, so it'll crank and crank and crank, almost like it's not getting fuel. Um, but literally, if I reset it, it cranks right up. Uh, One of the other symptoms I've had is the motor will cut off as I come to a stop, like an idle stop or something like that, pulling into a parking lot or whatever. It's only happened about 3 or 4 times total, and I've had plenty of rides in between with success. So that was kind of odd. And then the other thing is something that I really can't explain well because I've never heard the sound before. It's different. And what I'm talking about is when I start the bike, the times that it did die out. So not the repeated cranking, but when I experienced the bike just kind of just dying. Um, I started that ride. I started the bike, and it had just an abnormal starting sound. So not quite kickback sound, and not quite backfire. It just, I really wish I had an opportunity to capture it, but it's so rare, so intermittent that um, I wouldn't know when to record. So unfortunately, I don't have an example, but it's something I noticed, and the reason I call that out is because the first time I did it, I just kind of sat there and went, "Well, that was a weird start." Like I didn't think didn't think anything of it, and so that kind of goes into my first story here. Is when I noticed that, I went to run an errand, and while I was coming up to a light, I pulled in the clutch and went, let the throttle go, and the bike died out. So I ended up kind of coasting into a parking lot right away because I wanted to kind of check things out really quick, and went to restart it, started right back up, revved it, let it idle for a second, and no problem. So I thought maybe it was just some one-off thing, and so I rode to my location, and right when I pulled into the parking lot and pulled in the clutch, it did the same thing. The bike just died out. After that, I rode the bike a couple of times, not a single issue. Uh, I, you know, Not long after that, so like I said, I had a couple rides in between, but not long after that, it was kind of odd. Went to work, went to lunch, and on my way back from lunch, I was coming to the parking area and pulled in the clutch, and sure enough, died out again. So when I had that last die out, I did notice that weird starting sound again, and I kind of anticipated it, and it just, I was right. So based on those symptoms, and that indicator, I just kind of feel like it's something ignition related, timing related, something about those sorts, right? So sensors can be very tricky, and it really helps if you have a code. But in this particular case, I don't have a code, so I'm shooting from the hip a little bit. I'm going with what I think makes the most sense, at least in my mind. I may be way off, and yeah. So let's take a look at this part, and I'll show you the location. So here's the sensor. This one is a Drag Specialties branded sensor. And when I did my research on the part number, it was kind of hit and miss. It was really weird. I ended up having to run to Drag Specialties website to validate if this part number worked for the '07 Road King, and it does. I bought it off of eBay, and that's part of the problem too, is not everybody knows what they're selling 100% on eBay. You got some really, really good sellers, and then some sellers that are somewhat knowledgeable. And then there's others that don't know anything, right? Like they just kind of have a thing and they're selling it and they provide 0 details. So in this particular case, here's the sensor, and let's take a look at where it's going to go on the 07. On the 07 Road King, that sensor sits right here, just in front of your oil filter. So it's really easy to get to. You've got one screw, it's a hex screw there. And then if you follow that cable down, you can kind of see the plug right there. You just need to unplug that, swap out the sensor, and screw it back in. You want to make sure you have that good O-ring there. But that's it. So it's a pretty simple job. We'll run through it really quick, and then we'll give it a start. But I don't anticipate there being anything different about it. All right. So being in the location that this thing is in, it kind of makes it easier to do this, and I get to even do it outside, which is nice because the garage is really hot. So we'll just take that screw off. And let me throw the handle on this thing. I'm switching over to a ratchet setup just because of the tight space there. I couldn't get the little T-handle that's made for my Allen wrench. So this is why you buy all those different tools, right? Because engineers make you. So once you get it off, you should be able to unplug it and swap out the sensor. All right, let's see if we can do this by hand now. A little bit out. Okay. So it looks like I had a little bit of thread locker in there. So we'll want to make sure we throw some blue Loctite on there before we put that thing back on. But it's already loose. So I'll just need to pull that out. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect it and see if we can show you where this guy goes. Might be a little tough here. But it's kind of sitting right below the motor mount. So let me go and get that, and I'll show you putting in the new one. So now that I've got the old sensor out here, what I did is I just took a meter and ran ohms, and this one read about 1 kilo ohm, and this one's reading a 1.2. So again, I don't have a reference to determine whether or not or what the tolerance is supposed to be, but the fact that these are reading different, that's probably not right. So it makes me a little bit more confident that I'm on the right track. But again, I won't know until I get to run this a couple of times and see if it fails. So putting this in is, like I said, very simple. So you just go ahead and put your sensor right back in there. I'm gonna just kind of show you there, and then you got your plug hanging down there, so that'll get plugged in. So I'm just gonna push that in and tighten things up. So everything's now installed. So this is why I don't do like step-by-steps. It's just because I know I do things just out of kind of routine, and there are things I don't cover. So while off camera, just some of the things I wanted to make you aware of is down there where the plug actually connects. Once I got them separated, I want to clean it up a little bit. So I ran some WD-40 contact cleaner because it's really greasy down there. And, so you want to, or at least I like to clean my contacts to make sure that dirt and grime and stuff like that's not a factor. The other thing I did is I put a little bit of silicone grease on the O-ring before inserting that sensor into the crankcase, and again, that just makes it a little easier for it to go in. Doesn't hurt none. So those are just things that I typically do. And then with that little screw there, I'm not sure what the exact torque is, but it being a small screw going inside that case, and I'm assuming the case is probably aluminum, you want to be careful with that stuff. So it's usually a pretty light torque, like a 14 to maybe 20 foot-pounds or something like that. So you just want to snug it up. And I did put some Loctite on there just to ensure that vibrations doesn't back it out. It's not likely the sensor would just pop out, but just in case. So those are just a couple of things that happen off camera I wanted to make you aware of. So let's give this a start. All right, guys, so there you go. Swapped it out, fired right up. Didn't seem odd or anything like that, but like I said, the problem was intermittent, so I don't have any hard or any ability to make it fail without just riding it. So I think I'll get a couple of rides on it, and if it doesn't come back, then hopefully that'll be good. I have no engine codes right now, which is how I started with anyway, so that at least tells me that the new part didn't create any problems. And again, the only difference I could tell right now is the difference in ohms, being 1 kilo ohm for the old part and 1.2 whatever kilo ohms for the new one. So we'll see. Again, easy process. It's just the kind of a little bit of process of elimination. Parts aren't too bad as far as cost goes. I think this one was maybe about 30 bucks or so through eBay. And again, depending on your bike, your model, it's going to vary as far as price goes. So this is what I hope to bring to you all, as far as like taking the opportunities to try to figure it out on your own, do a little bit of your own work, and have confidence in yourself. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and until that next video does post, I hope to see you in the win.